Today I have in front of me a camera that is somewhat familiar, but also new. It is the Fuji GFX 50S Mark II. And it is a Mark II camera, but once I open this box, and if you guys have ever watched a Fuji video that I've ever done, you'll probably notice that this camera looks strangely similar to the last Fuji camera that I unboxed. Here's the camera. We'll look at it more in a second. Let's just see what else is in the box. Apparently, I am missing a USB-C cable and brick. So imagine that's in this box. We've got the standard medium format strap, which again, you've probably seen before, but it's a strap you probably won't use. I say that every time, but I never use these and you shouldn't either. We've got some international plugs and a battery. Just like if you watch the GFX 100S video, this camera uses the X-T4 battery, the NPW235. I love this battery. If you own an X-T4, you probably have a bunch of these, and it works really well with this camera because the battery door is on the bottom. Just like my 100S video, but this camera does have a completely different sensor from the 100S, and it's kind of targeted at a very different market, but we'll talk about that in a second. We also have Fuji's new 35 to 70 f4.5 to 5.6, and this is the kit lens that ships with the camera. So the interesting thing about this camera is that the price of it is $3,999 for the body. So what I'm holding right here. If you get it with the lens, it is $44.99, so $4,500. So it's a $500 adder, and honestly, that's a really good value because this is a 35 to 70 lens, so that's a decent range. Yes, it's not a constant aperture, not the fanciest lens ever, but it is weather resisted. So if you're looking for a starter kit for medium format to get your foot in the door, Fuji wants this to be as accessible as possible. And let's just figure out how they've priced this camera at that price point. Because yes, you might be hearing $399.99 and thinking, Brandon, $4,000 for a camera? That's still a lot of money. And yes, it is a lot of money. But don't forget, this sensor's huge. And medium format is larger than full frame, which is the most common mirrorless camera format that I see these days. Wow, this lens doesn't actually weigh very much. It has that kind of kit lens pop out. So I think the classic 18 to 55 Canon also did something similar to this, but when you kind of zoomed it out, it would just pop out and you'd see this much of the barrel exposed. And I'm sure it's a design that makes a lot of sense in terms of like economics. And again, it's a very functional design. It's not the prettiest design. This is not a pretty lens, but very functional. Let's weigh this thing. Run out the caps. The lens weighs 0.85 pounds. How much is that in grams? 386 grams. Not bad. Not super light, not super heavy. And then the camera comes in at 900 grams, exactly. So just under 2 pounds. Pretty standard, like something like the 5D Mark IV from many, many years ago now, like a standard DSLR size. That's kind of what this feels like to me. And that's what the 100S felt like to me. Okay, I'm gonna put this lens on because I'm sure I'm giving many of you anxiety by just flailing the sensor around.
How big is it?
How big is what?
How big is the camera?
It's about the size of a DSLR. Oh.
Compare.
Ah!
Banana.
Jono has graciously given me the short circuit banana for scale. So, if you want to see what a GFX 50S Mark II looks like with a banana that is sort of ish to scale, it's like a cyclops smiling from the top down. Okay, let's take a quick look at the physical body of this camera. If you watched my GFX 100S video, this body is exactly the same, but I will go through it nonetheless. On the top, we've got a manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, program, and then 6 custom buttons. Nice to see. We have the movie to still mode, 1 button click snap, very nice. On off shutter, and then these control our views, so it goes from histogram to our normal settings view with exposure compensation, and then our virtual dial view. On the front, we've got a command 1 dial, we've got the command 2 dial, and on the back of the camera, we've got a joystick for focus control, delete, drive. They've actually removed, if you're used to other cameras like a Sony or even other Fuji cameras, they've removed the directional buttons on the back. So this is just all for your finger, which you might like in terms of like finger placement and comfort, but personally, I think I'd actually still prefer to have another level of control here, even though the joystick is fine. You can get through pretty much every part of the menu with the joystick. It's just, I never always preferred to use the joysticks because I've gotten so used to over the years just using control buttons. You might disagree, but for me, that's never been my favorite way to use the camera is a joystick. Menu button, display, and then playback for photos that you've taken. On the right of the camera, we've got dual SD card slots, and then a 2.5mm remote port. And then on the left of the camera, this piece right here, where it says GFX 50S2, that is the only way you can tell this camera apart from a 100S. Obviously, besides using it, but like if you were standing 2 feet away, they look identical. So finishing off the ports, we've got a headphone jack, a mic jack, Type-C, micro HDMI, and a flash sync port. And then the display, of course, goes like this, or like this, which is nice, but again, not my favorite flip out display that has ever existed. And then you also have a quick menu function button on the tiny little thumb rest right here. The quick button, I have to still get used to it. I've only used the GFX cameras in a limited capacity, but I never actually found myself using the quick settings button on these cameras just because it's kind of awkward to, when you're holding the camera like this, have to let go of it a little bit and have your thumb go to here. Like, cause you're holding the weight of your camera with your grip. I mean, if you have it in your other hand and you have this, then it's an easy movement. But if you're holding it with one hand, for whatever reason, maybe you're holding something else or like holding something into the shot or that kind of thing, then getting to the quick menu is not my favorite. Also, I didn't mention this in my 100S video, but I did just notice when you change ISO on this camera, you actually have to push the front command dial in order to get to the ISO settings. So if you look on the top of the camera here, you'll see that I'm now changing my ISO, and then I press in, and now I'm changing my aperture. I don't love that. At least first impressions, I don't love that. It might be the kind of thing that I would get used to, but to me, it's not that intuitive, especially when you open the camera for the first time. A small thing overall, but a quirk that I don't personally like with this camera. I commend Fuji on taking existing R&D that they've spent on designing a sensor and a camera body and putting it together, delivering it at the lowest price point that they have ever, because the upfront cost has already been recuperated with the other cameras they've released. So okay, enough talk. The camera, you've seen it physically, we've talked about it, you've seen the lens. Let's try this thing. But first, a word from our sponsor, Jackery. Thanks to Jackery for sponsoring today's video. Their Explorer 1500 portable power station has enough juice to keep all your devices powered and connected. Its huge 1500 watt hour capacity and 1800 watt output rates allows up to 7 devices plugged in simultaneously. Takes only 4 hours to recharge up from 0 to 80%. Check out the Explorer 1500 at the link below and get 10% off with code LinusTechTips. Okay, we're back. Let's take a look at these photos of Colton. Now, a couple of them look like they've actually ended up out of focus because I was trying to go in and out really quickly to see how well the autofocus system could track. Some of them had actually nailed it, but others came out a little bit soft. Not a huge deal, because again, this camera isn't really made for like fast motion, and if you're gonna use it, you're probably using it for either something that is relatively still or as a secondary where you can kind of like nail that moment perfectly instead of it being like, I need to capture this action every single time it happens consistently. But I mean, just like the 50S from before, the 51 megapixel sensor on this camera is excellent. And for those of you who are pixel shift enthusiasts, this camera actually now has the 200 megapixel pixel shift mode, which allows you to use the in-body image stabilization to move itself to gather more pixels and color data and then stitch all of those photos in post, giving you a much higher resolution, more detailed shot than even your normal 51.4 megapixel shot. That does take quite a bit of horsepower, and it's not something that we can unfortunately show in this video, but here's a couple of other photos from this camera, and you guys can be the judge what you think. I mean, it is, again, the same sensor as the old camera, so visually, besides the nostalgic negative profile, which I have to say, I really like the nostalgic negative film simulation that they've added to this camera. I loved it on the 100S, and even though this camera's sensor is the same as the previous camera, it feels like that new profile breathes new life into the sensor, as well as the slightly improved autofocus. So first impression, honestly, I'd say Fuji has done a pretty good job with this camera. They've taken technology they already had in terms of R&D, put it together in a camera. Yes, it's $4,000, but $4,000 for a medium format camera of this caliber, especially as an entry level, guys, it's pretty good. Like there's nothing else on the market right now where you can get a medium format camera for less money. And this is probably a supplementary body to someone, like for someone like me who owns an X-T4, if you can afford another $4,000 plus maybe 500 minimum for another lens, then this would make a great camera to go along with a fast camera like something like the X-T4 or even something like a Sony if you want that higher resolution, higher detail image quality. Would I buy one? Maybe, but I am not 100% sure. I mean, I'm not a professional photographer ultimately, but as an enthusiast, this camera is pretty compelling. And if you're looking to get into medium format, you don't really have a cheaper option. And I would say this one's pretty good. So thank you guys for watching. And if you guys want more camera videos, let me know in the comments down below if there's another camera that I haven't checked out that you want me to check out. And subscribe to Short Circuit. See you later.
We know you want the 4D.
Yes, we know you want the Ronin 4D. We're working on it. We might get one, but no promises.